We have considered various scenarios in which we looked at the performance of a router from the processing both at the input and output. However, it is also equivalently interesting to determine what happens when an IP datagram belonging to either real time traffic or interactive traffic is stuck up in the router buffer, either at the input or the output, just because another packet before it is not being processed. This is called head of the line blocking. In this module, we shall first see what situation could create input port overflow, how head of the line blocking situation arises, and we'll look at it through a visual scenario. When the switching fabric is slower than the combined input ports data rate, then queuing starts to happen at the input queue. This is well understood. But what we also need to understand is that the input queue also starts getting congested and eventually buffer overflow could happen. Head of the line blocking eventually would be a serious situation at the input port queue. Why? Because the queued datagrams on the front or the head end of the queue would prevent the subsequent IP datagrams to be processed, and the head end IP datagrams cannot be processed because the switching fabric is way too slow. As a figure, let's look at the scenario where we have three input ports. The topmost left side port contains a red packet, and the lowermost port again contains another red packet. Both of these are destined for the same output port. When the switching fabric is slow, it could only process one of these at a time. Let's say the switching fabric chooses the red packet in the top left queue. What will happen is the red packet in the bottom left queue would still be stuck up at the head end, and it would keep the green packet from being processed, whereas the switching fabric had the output port vacant and it could treat the green packet and send it over to the third output port. But the switching fabric is slow, so it can't do that. This situation becomes very grave, and eventually it results into failure of various applications because the router is not good enough to prevent the loss of interactive and real-time traffic. For elastic traffic, such as non-real-time file transfer and web browsing, this head-of-the-line blocking is not a very serious issue, but otherwise it is an issue that router and switch manufacturers have to deal with.